Dear Grace, today I'm going to wing it. Unlike all of the days where I planned everything down to a T, outlines, points I wanted to make, everything else. Today, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to try and record it into a document, but it doesn't really matter. Alright. Obviously back in the studio. Even though I recorded a couple of things outside, I didn't use them. Don't ask me why. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a retired autistic senior. Today, I guess, will be a sleepy time rambling about everything. Or nothing. I haven't decided yet. Just decided that I needed to record for 1 hour. And by coincidence, I have the studio for 1 hour and 11 minutes. This is going to be heavy on the Rockstar Pure Zero. Going with fruit punch today. Probably lots of lip smacking. Starting to wonder why I even did all these recordings. This system really does not work well for dictation. I don't know why. Probably my fault. I think that would make the most sense. Alright. Pointless to talk about anything that's going on in the news, because nobody cares. The Telepathy Tapes bumped Joe Rogan out of the #1 podcast spot for a while. But he had Zuckerberg and Mel Gibson on this week, so I doubt they're still there. Plus, I'm not really seeing much on Twitter anymore, so nothing happens. Mainstream news doesn't pick up on it, and they won't. If you listen to the tapes, Grace, you'll know they talk about the hill. As I've said before, or when I looked at, in a previous episode, many previous episodes, I talked about autism and why it's bullshit. And the telepathy tapes don't necessarily help, or they may harm. But to be fair, my problem is autism can't be proved one way or the other. And unfortunately, although they like to say spectrum, which is true, it could actually be that there's no spectrum whatsoever. At least until someone can find an MRI or a part of the brain or something that's pretty consistent for every person labeled autistic, whether they're so-called high functioning, low functioning, live with their parents, live on the streets. It doesn't really matter. Right now it's just a mess. And it's still a stupid diagnosis in the first place. Autism is all about trying to change a person's behavior because you don't like it. Or you're embarrassed by it. Or it's difficult for you. Or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I've gone through all of this before, so I don't feel like saying it again. But all those symptoms are bullshit. And as soon as you push someone on it, then they try and guilt you. I like to take my frustrations out on Twitter, as you know, Grace, if you've been reading my posts. But nothing pisses me off more than someone telling me how to behave on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it. If you're on Twitter, you get what you get. If you don't like the person, block them. If you think you can change someone's personality by telling them to be more civil, more polite, more whatever, fuck you. The whole point of X is to be able to express yourself fully as yourself. Now, if you're an asshole autistic like me, who digs his heels in, then that's what you get. If you don't like it, block me. Fuck off. I don't care. I'm not there for you. I'm there to exercise my frustrations, my demons. And to fuck with people and troll people too. But if you don't like my words, don't read them. End of story. Which is the same in real life. So they have all the autistic symptoms and they line them all up. Oh, this one, that one, that one. Oh, eye contact. Eye contact's a problem. So you mind your son or daughter to make eye contact. Make eye contact. Better make fucking eye contact. Why? putting that extra pressure on the kid or young adult or whoever the fuck it is, it just makes the situation worse, not better. And it has nothing to do with anxiety or autism or anything. It has to do with a person's personal choice to make eye contact or not. And that choice can happen from babyhood, as far as I'm concerned. Eye contact is optional. And if you're such a poor communicator that you can't communicate without eye contact, that's your fucking problem. A little pissy, Grace. I think if the hill exists, it's to give quote-unquote autistics a place where they can be themselves without the thoughts or opinions of the rest of society. At least that's what I would make it. Because although it doesn't bother me now personally, if you're looking on screen, Grace, it says, because the Lord doesn't bother me now personally. No, it says, if you're looking on screen, Grace, it says, because of the Lord. Personally, now it says Noah. I think the Google thing has a God complex. Anyways, if the hill exists, it's probably for a place where they can go and be themselves 100%. Whether that's an out-of-body experience where they feel like they're in another body, or it's a telepathic connection to someone, or it's just a dream state that helps them get through the next day of everyone telling them what they should be and shouldn't be. It's a little mean, Grace. I'm not insinuating the parents in the telepathy tapes are like that, but I am insinuating that parents are a lot different behind closed doors than in front of a camera. And we don't really know. Not those parents in particular, but if you look at the now millions of autistic children, people around the world, who knows what's going on behind closed doors. And again, I'm not suggesting any sort of weird abuse. I'm just suggesting that perhaps in public they say one thing, and in private, they, being the parents, say another thing. Which again, for a quote-unquote autistic mind, might be the most annoying thing ever. If the hill is true, number one rule is there's no lying. Which in the tapes they talk about, or at least one guy talks about, it's a gift, but you can't lie. Which, according to psychology, the inability to lie is a symptom of autism. So tell me, doctor, which genome causes that? Which section of the brain? Which neuron? Which whatever? You don't know. You don't have a fucking clue. Same for all the other 10, 20, however many symptoms there are of autism. Basically anything you could find that you couldn't explain. not sure if you're going to be able to sleep to this, Grace. It's more of a bitch session than a story. But I'm trying to do it in a calm, soothing voice so you can still sleep. Although, to be fair, this one is a bit more interesting. I might even want to listen. Anywho, it would be nice although there, I'm changing the voice settings to English Canada. Maybe it'll work better. What was I going to say? The hill. What is the hill? I have no idea. I also think part of the reason the telepathy tapes didn't take off, and they're not on the news, and everyone's wondering why the fuck aren't we talking with our minds instead of our mouths, is the fear that if someone's talking to you in your mind, there's a chance, there's a possibility, maybe even a probability that they can actually read your mind and not just talk to you in your mind. That alone would probably make 95% of the population not interested in trying it, just in case. I'm not saying everyone has deep, dark secrets, but everyone wants to reveal their life at their own pace. Not have it probed out of them. Here's what the aliens are doing. So I've been told. That's a joke, Grace. Although, to be fair, a little side note, I am using an Alienware computer. So, who knows? I also don't know if this recording is working because the speakers aren't working today. But I can see the levels and I'm going to just risk it, Grace. That's just the kind of guy I am. What's an hour of my day wasted in the studio talking about telepathy tapes, autism, anything just to get words out of my mouth and wake up. Anywho, build a device that's easier to use than Neuralink. A device that guarantees that the two people can only communicate with what I'm going to say are word thoughts, not just thoughts. Because a thought can encompass everything around it, including past, present, future, emotions, everything. But a word thought to me is like a text message. It's like, hello, good morning, how are you? I'm pissed off, Grace. Stuff like that. And if I was going to build the hill, and I kind of did when I wrote about autistics solving the DSM-5, which is really just a bunch of autistic people with the ultimate freedom and freedoms to do and be as they please on an island away from civilization. Kind of sounds like the hill. Unfortunately, Epstein fucked that whole island concept. However, maybe we can reclaim it. So my island and the hill has some similarities. I would say, Grace, there's probably multiple ways to get to the hill, if the hill is something, and I'm going to take their word for it, the participants, that it exists, especially since multiples all have the same name and concept. Maybe the hill is like a universal translator. Connects two people, either in need or in love. It connects them telepathically, for lack of better words. Although telepathy, to me, is primarily a communication method, whereas a lot of people instantly put it into the mind reading category, which is something else. Not that there's a mind reader that can get on stage and have his abilities measured with a device, nor can two telepaths get on stage and have their abilities measured with a device. Until then, this will never be on the news. However, back to the hill. If I was to invent the hill, and that's probably a better way of looking at it, get the creativity going. If I was to invent the hill, I'd probably have multiple ways you could get onto it. As an example, being severely autistic and needing it as a way to communicate through your parents to the rest of the world. And in that respect, the parents are kind of on the hill without even knowing it. It's a possibility. Just spitballing, Grace. I would guess if this is some sort of universal phenomenon. Ooh, I got that word out, Grace. I would guess if this is some sort of universal phenomenon. I just keep saying phenomenon, phenomenon, phenomenon. Will that put you to sleep, Grace? Phenomenon, phenomenon, phenomenon. Shit, I'm pretty proud of myself. I guess if this was some sort of universal phenomenon that anyone could access, there's probably multiple methods. And if I was to guess, I would say being severely autistic is one, and you kind of get a free pass. Being mildly autistic is one, if you work at it. And by work at it, I mean you need another method. I would say probably during times of high stress might be a way of making a temporary connection to the hill, where you connect to another person because something happened, someone dies, whatever, and you're just so overcome with emotions that whoever you are thinking about, not necessarily the dead person, but whoever you are thinking about to comfort you, sort of comes to you on the hill. That's a possibility. I'm pretty sure drugs can get you to the hill, whatever it happens to be. Basically any of the illegal ones, the ones that they don't want you to use, those are ones that are going to get you there. If, and this is the key when it comes to the illegal drugs, if you're using them to get there. If you're just using the drugs to get out of your own mind, it's probably not going to take you to the hill. In the sense that the hill being a place that you can return to, pick up where you left off, and move forward. I guess looking at the hill sort of as a dream that you can come back to anytime you like. I don't know about you, Grace, but in the past I used to be able to return to my dreams either the same night or sometimes nights later. I can't do that anymore, but I used to do that a lot, especially as a child. And as a child, if you believe autism is a thing, I definitely had it, and I definitely masked it as much as human fuckingly possible. Which is why on Twitter, when someone tells me to be polite, I tell them to fuck off. And if you don't like it, change to DSM-5. Because according to that, autistic people are rude. So I'm just doing what the professionals say. It's probably good that DSM-5 didn't, well, it did exist when I was in my teenage years, but it's probably good that I didn't know about it, because I probably would have read it and then fucked with everyone around me. It is bullshit. But I'll leave that for now, Grace. Let's go back to the hill. Drugs will get you there. But if you want to get there and actually do something, you're probably going to have to do it with meditation, maybe fasting, maybe not talking for a couple of years, maybe all of the above. I think there's probably 12 or more ways to get into the concept of the hill. I like the idea that the Hill's a universal translator and that it's anonymous. And I realize in the Telepathy Tapes they talk about JP and some other people who are both living and on the Hill now. That's my understanding. I may have fucked that up, but whatever. To me, I think it's a universal translator, and any two people can connect, even regardless of language. Especially at first. I think at first the connection, or the telepathic connection, is really just more like text messages. Like someone sending you a random text that doesn't quite make sense, and you're like, what the fuck do you mean by that, buddy? And then either you reply or you ignore. It's something like that. A lot of people call that premonitions and shit. I can see that. But I'm talking about it being the first level. So rather than two people hearing voices in their head, which generally makes most people want to go to the hospital and say, what the fuck's going on, doctor? Or pretend like it's not happening their entire life. Instead of that, like you say, it's just like a random errant message. Sometimes profound, sometimes stupid, sometimes silly, and sometimes necessary. Like your shoes untied. Now, how would a voice in my head know my shoes untied? It could just be my own voice reminding me. It could be my subconscious. It could be any number of things. I'm a creative person. I call myself a writer. I call myself a comedian. I call myself a lot of things. Asshole sometimes. Jerk. Perfect ass man. Whatever. Stage one, like a text message, no more emotion than the actual words in the message. So if in the message it says, I love you, and the person that's sending it, you do love, and you would feel it. I'm not saying every single time, because it's also kind of like in real life, where when two people are saying I love you 20 fucking times a day, it kind of loses meaning. Telepathy is no different. The first time, or times, are going to be more emotional, and then once the connection's made, it becomes more routine. However, like non-telepathy relationships or conversations, there'll be times where one party notices the other party needs something. Something hopeful. And then try and send some messages to help or encourage the other person. Again, this is anonymous. This would be two people anywhere on the planet. And because The universal translator would always catch names. It's not like you can use your name, but you don't know the name that you've been given is the right name. Does that make sense, Grace? As an example. I'll explain that a little bit better. It's more convoluted than even I can handle. So you're Grace, but on the hill. Actually, you're Grace on the hill, but in real life, you're someone else, name-wise. Well, I lost my train of thought. I have to turn up the light in the room to wake up. I think stage 2 of the hill would probably be dependent on both parties and what they're looking for. Whether they're just looking for a friend, someone to talk to outside of family and society, or whether they're looking for a partner. Or maybe they found their partner, but they're just stuck on the hill for now. There's a lot of possibilities. But I do believe that if the communication started off slow, like text messages, and then increased to longer messages, sentences, that a certain trust can be built up, and that a certain trust can be built up. As the trust increases, so does the I don't want to say ability, like it's a superpower, because it's not a superpower. Anyone that thinks communication with another in your mind is a superpower probably hasn't communicated with someone in their mind. It's like having a Siamese twin. Some days you'd probably like to cut their head off, but you can't, because they're your twin, and you probably die. You shove a sock in their mouth, but then they have the other hand, so they could just take it out. So I think a Siamese twins is a pretty good analogy of the higher level abilities on the hill. Basically someone that can see from your perspective, hear from your perspective, smell from your perspective, feel from your perspective. And I don't know how it works with Siamese twins. I don't know who feels what in the body, and if their heads are completely separate. I could probably research that, but as you know, Grace, I won't. Also, we're 39 minutes in, and I only have an hour today, so... And that's an hour not just to record, but to upload. So we'll have to see. Besides the point, Siamese twins is the best analogy at the higher levels, except you can leave the hill and you can't cut your twin's head off. Yet. Maybe one day. But I'll cut it off, put on a new body. Or cut off both heads. Put one head on a new body, another head on another new body. And away you go. That would make it a lot easier. A lot easier, Grace. Not sure I've done a great job of explaining this. It is all theoretical. But I do think until there's two people or more on this planet who can get into a Faraday cage alone, naked. Of course, Grace, they have to be naked. Alone, naked, in a completely black room, a completely soundproof room, 95% soundproof. Anymore, and the people might go nuts. Filmed only with night vision, infrared. Before they go in the cage, they have a MRI, they have a full body CT scan, they are x-rayed, numerous metal detectors are run over them to ensure that they have no electronics hidden on them. And then might as well hook them up to a bunch of EEGs and shit like that. Unless the Faraday cage fucks that up, then don't bother. And then they communicate. I guess you have to have a speaker in there or something. Tells one person what to say. That person transfers it to the other. The other speaks it out and records it, and that's it. And no matter what's said to either person, they can transfer it back and forth seamlessly without any device, without having to drop acid first, without spending 4 hours meditating, without fasting for a week, without anything. Just two people walking off the street, looking normal as fuck. Kind of like me and you, Grace. We look pretty normal. I mean, I'm old as shit, but other than that, two people walk in, and then they do that. Everything documented so fucking much that there's just no question. Every piece of footage is shown, start to finish. No questions asked. Thousands of hours of footage if required. And if people still don't believe, they could use AI to analyze all the footage and try and find an error or whatever else. So that's how to prove it. But then why? How does it help humanity? And I'm afraid in the telepathy tapes they don't cover that very well, because they're still looking at it like a parlor trick rather than an actual communication method. And a different communication method, one that requires pure honesty, no lying. And the world is nowhere near that. The world is nowhere near ready for that. I am. The world's not. Grace, I'm pretty sure you're ready for it. The world's not. However, it's a nice preview. And I think I'll leave it there, which will give me enough time to upload it. And phenomenon, sleep, Grace, phenomenon, sleep. See if we can break the 20-second record, Grace. Sleep. Nowhere near, Grace. Alright, that was short and I would say sweet, but it's not. It's not as mean to you, Grace, but not exactly a love letter. My apologies. You could read or listen to the previous 90 plus episodes if you're looking for love letter shit. Lots in there, if I remember correctly. But I don't, because I'm a retired autistic senior. I'm retired because of memory issues. Don't worry, it's not the bad kind, where you forget your friends and family. It's the good kind, where you forget your friends and family. Talk to you tomorrow, Grace.